five of us delighted to be here this evening in Sheffield, where we're going to give the first performance of what has become titled Up by the Roots. This collaboration between the trio, which are Adi, Dara and I, and Pierce Halliwell, composer, and Sinead Morrissey, poet. And I say Up by the Roots, it has become known as, because when this whole project and adventure started, there weren't any words and there weren't any music. There were lots of ideas, so there definitely wasn't a title. And we've spent the last 48 hours working very closely together, but it was the first time that Sinead entered the performance space. We obviously have been working at the music as we've been getting it, and doing our best to actually deliver the poetry as well, and getting used to the flow of the piece and how we felt it all together. But I think it must be a completely different realm of how would you describe it, connection with the work that you have written, to now be here in the middle of the performing group on stage, performing. It's not just delivering, it's actually performing this whole work. So it would be really nice to hear from you, Sinead, how you found that for the last 2 days.
So it's been really exciting, and it's been really exciting to hear the language meshed into the music, and to hear how the two are speaking backwards and forwards. And even though I do perform my poetry a lot, and I enjoy doing that, being part of the music as closely as this is obviously a completely new experience, but it's been great fun, and everyone's been so supportive in helping me come in when I need to come in, given that I don't read music. So yeah, it's been terrific. What's this muttering? What's this kerfuffle? Woken up after 500 years. Dragged out of my sleep by pheromones of alarm. By a sharp salt smell.
And did you have any strong idea before of how the music and your poetry would work together in terms of flowing together? I mean, it's one thing knowing that these bits of text are going to go in between these phrases of music or these bars of music, but did you have a strong sense of what it would be like, or has it actually felt very natural to you as we've gone through? I had no sense of what it would be like, and I've been really surprised by how organic the whole thing feels, and how seamlessly those transitions work. So it's defied my own expectations massively. I'm really delighted with how it all works as one piece. When Pierce and I first discussed the project, both of us were really interested in the ways in which the piece could change as it progresses, and how the barriers between music and poetry might break down. So where I didn't have a very clear idea of the characteristics of the music, I did leave deliberate gaps, white spaces, silences, particularly in the third piece, the climax of the piece, where I envisaged music interrupting the language and vice versa. And hearing that come together for the first time yesterday in rehearsal has been spine tingling, actually. It's been brilliant. It's been much more successful than I thought it could have been. Okay.
Spectacular trespass. My foregardens lit up like Christmas. The clearing is seething, shouting, gesticulating.
I think, Sinead, your beautiful poems and Pierce's brilliant, it's like an imagery of the poem. As we tried it in rehearsal just the other day, they both really come to life together and support both elements so well. So I was curious, how was the collaboration for you two?
Yeah, I mean, I think they do, but I don't really understand how that happened, to be honest. It just felt completely natural. I was thinking about this afterwards, and I was thinking that normally if I'm composing chamber music or anything really in the abstract, I have to create the expressive territory. So like, what am I trying to create? And sometimes I find, for example, that my music has a sort of tendency to start sort of being jolly when I don't really intend it to be, and sort of rhythmic things happen. So I'm usually worrying about that. I'm kind of, maybe I want it to be jolly, but I'm worrying about what kind of expression am I trying to make here and controlling that. Whereas in this project, I hardly had to think about that, because with Sinead's poetry, I was kind of in a zone already, so I knew the poem following or preceding. Sinead worked first, really, and I found I needed that. I sort of knew what was going before whatever I was writing or what was going after it. And therefore I kind of was in that world, particularly the world of the story of these real or imaginary migrants. And I didn't really have to think about that, and that's a very strange thing. It's quite reassuring, really. Coming out of it, I think, actually, I always seem to sort of know what kind of mood each of the movements was in, that what, kind of angst or calm, or there's not much calm, it was involved. And somehow the poems gave me a kind of route map for it, which I don't normally have.
I mean, it's really interesting. Etruscan Games couldn't be a more different piece to this, and yet, I can say wholeheartedly, it's definitely by Pierce Halliwell. They both sound like Pierce Halliwell's music. Well, without giving too much away about this piece tonight, but using Sinead's word, very true word, organic. What's most organic is by the last movement, the way they meld together in a very sincere way, and yet suddenly by the last movement of this piece, you're actually nearly a musician on the stage as much as we're nearly actors on the stage. It's nearly like a transversal of roles. Stage. It works brilliantly.
I think the music and the poetry, through that kind of choppy interaction, become transfigured into this other thing.
Yeah.
And the subject of the story at that point is transfiguration.
Yeah.
So there's a lovely kind of mirroring from the content.
Yeah,
It takes off, I think, particularly in the final movement.
Yeah.
The voice, I think, becomes so close at the end to what we're doing as a group that it sounds like it emerges into
It's like
that
a fourth
sound.
member of the quartet.
And it's really remarkably written. And
Yeah, well, I think we took very seriously the Beyond Borders idea of the PRS Music Foundation as a kind of philosophical starting point, because people always talk about words of music for composers and singers, and we were in what for us is a new situation with music and narration or separate text. And so I think it was very important to us that we started by having them separate and then charted a course of interaction so that they came together until you have this kind of operatic situation at the end. I'm pleased with that, because I think if we just presented a panel or series of panels of words and of music and poetry, I think there's something inevitable about that by the end, and people think, how many more poems are there to go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to present something that had a trajectory, that developed as you went through.
The moon undoes its tethers, rises, I wish them dumb and gone. I watch them become dumb and brown and freaked by their altered shadows, by their headgear, by their delicate, too thin legs, by their fur. And but for the sudden flash of their backs, the sudden rush of their skitter,
once more. A shuttered shop. A lake with no one on it. And sweet sleep. Takes me in its mouth. And lets me drop.